Do you think everybody should go to college?
I think everybody needs some meaningful post-high school credential. Education will go on throughout your life for you. It's just things are changing much faster for your generation than they did for mine or for my parents.
Borders being closed, we're seeing borders being open and doors being open in other places. And for me, as an immigrant myself, it's a great opportunity to actually pursue a career in the United States and in a first world country, as we say, in Mexico. An F1 student to actually get a job in the field, we need to get another visa, which is the H1 visa.
Mm-hmm.
And that visa is basically a lottery. What do you think either UTEP, the United States government, or anything can help us to ease up those kind of situations so that more highly educated, capable immigrants can come to the United States?
So our immigration laws are outdated, no question. And they have been, it's kind of been stuck for about 20 years. And there are things that large numbers of people in America agree on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Triple T Podcast again with Fede Morado. Don't remember to like, subscribe, click on everything you see on the screen right now because we encourage everybody to be subscribed to the Triple T Podcast with Fede Morado. As you can see, right now we're in a different scenario. We have some beautiful flags on behind us. The Texan flag, the Mexican flag, the American flag. And I'm honored here to be with Dr. Heather Wilson. Doctor, how are you?
My pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much for receiving us. Like I said, what is first I want to start a conversation. What is the meaning for you for this office? I mean, we are seeing behind, I don't know if the people can see in the photos, UTEP is such an historic place. And I believe that this meeting this conference room has received a lot of meaningful conversation. So what does this room mean to you?
Well, this is where the university was rebuilt in 1918. So the original university was started in 1914, and it was out in East El Paso, and the building burned down. And the people of El Paso came back together, and they went to the legislature, but they also said, we will contribute the land if we really want a college here in El Paso. We want higher education here in West Texas. And so it was philanthropy and the contributions of the community that reestablished this university here, right in the foothills of the Franklin Mountains. So I look out every day across the Centennial Plaza and up into the mountains, to the Franklin Mountains, and this land here was a gift from the people of El Paso. And so in some ways, our job is to give back to the community that's given so much to us.
Wow, that's beautiful. And me as a foreigner, I mean, you too as a foreigner, every day that you come by and to see the beautiful sunsets and to be we were talking before recording about the pollen and dirt, right? Mm-hmm. But aside from that, it's a really nice scenario to live in, and it's so quiet and it's so like mystic. And many times you see animals crossing around the campus.
We have a fox family that lives under this building. So
this building, okay.
Yeah, in the arroyo that goes down underneath this building and then down underneath science. And I've seen him a couple of times.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a little shy.
He is. The other day we'll put the video right here. Normally when I miss the bus around like 6:50, 7 o'clock, the shuttle, it leaves at 7:04, the last one. But the last time I missed it, and the fox was like running behind me, and it started shouting. And do you believe in that? I've never heard a fox actually like what
bark?
Yeah, bark.
Bark.
Is that how I say?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. There's a song called "What Does the Fox Say?" And it's like mimics that, but I've never heard that. So it's amazing how nature surprises you.
I don't think I've ever heard a fox bark.
I'll probably send you an audio later.
So he was chasing you?
Well, I know what. I mean, it will be an extent of me to say that it was chasing me. I don't think so, but it was behind me.
Okay.
And it caught me by surprise because, as you know, like all the youngsters were always wearing headphones. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know, and I should be more aware of my surroundings from now often.
Yeah.
Doctor, another point that I wanted to talk to you is, as you may know, we're in March. Is Women's Month, as internationally, the 8th of March is the Women's International Day in all over the world, Mexico, the United States. And you, as an outstanding woman in many areas, politics, education, entrepreneur, every aspect that I've investigated for, I wanted to talk to you about the sense that even though America and, well, North America as a whole, Canada, Mexico, and the United States, they're really progressive into developing the character of women and having women in power. As you may know, the two candidates, well, there's three, but two candidates of the three on the Mexican candidacy for the presidency, they're women. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing a strive into like equality and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But still, we see that there's a breach between men, women, races, all that kind of stuff. So in your perspective, what is the next thing that the society, the government, well, the United States as a whole should do to strive to more equality between men and women?
Well, the thing has changed a lot in the United States in the 1960s and 1970s. When I was in high school, so I graduated from high school in 1978, so that officially makes me old.
Well, no, not at all, youngster.
1978. When I was in high school, maybe 1 in 10 doctors in America were women.
Wow.
They opened the Air Force Academy to women when I was a junior in high school. So I attended the Air Force Academy. And so opportunities were opening for women. From my mother's generation, my mother told me that when she was in high school, she told her guidance counselor she wanted to be a veterinarian. And he laughed at her because women weren't veterinarians. Yeah. And so she could be a teacher or a secretary or a nurse. And so she chose to be a nurse. But those opportunities were not as open as they are today. And so we need to take advantage of those opportunities. I think one of the things that I actually worry about might be the reverse of what you're talking about, which is when we look at young men and young women are now more likely to go on to higher education than young men. And I worry that universities are not attracting enough young men, and that will limit their opportunities in the future. And it might be because I can get a good job in the oil fields or without a college degree, but what was good enough for our parents and grandparents is not good enough for our children and grandchildren. Young people today are going to need a lot more education and training than my generation did, and not just girls, boys too.
And now with artificial intelligence, we're seeing that many jobs are being put apart from artificial intelligence itself. So many people that were truckers or something, which is a very popular career here in America, they're now being replaced by autonomous car driving.
Could be, yeah. Things are going to change.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Do you think everybody should go to college?
I think everybody needs some meaningful post-high school credential.
Okay.
Now that may mean a community college degree. That may mean an associate's or bachelor's degree. It may mean technical training. But more than my generation, the generation before, things are changing so fast that education will go on throughout your life for you. So you have to have that
everywhere you can learn
that growth mindset throughout your life. And it's just things are changing much faster for your generation than they did for mine or for my parents.
They are, and it's scary. And now with a globalized world, we're seeing borders being closed. We're seeing borders being open and doors being open in other places. And for me, as an immigrant myself, it's a great opportunity to actually pursue a career in the United States and in a first world country, as we say, in Mexico. And it's interesting because you reflect on the soft skills that you can develop outside of college. Because normally, it's difficult to stay in the loop and stay updated every day as a higher education because it needs to be legislative. I believe here in this room, you guys have actually thought about how to change the higher education system many times, and I believe that it's a good thing that it should change, but it's hard. It's hard to change. So I think that right now my generation is looking for other types of opportunities outside of college, and if you can balance both college and thinking outside of the box, and doing a course in edX, Coursera, whatever these companies do, I think that's a great set for you.
It is. I would also encourage students to look at internships and co-op experiences. So take what you learn in the classroom and then go apply it in the real world where the context is more complicated. I was talking to a student who had done an engineering student who had done an internship and was describing how scared he was at first when they gave him this internship job to fix. It was a production line, and it was an ag production line, and they were having problems with it. And he was a mechanical engineer, and he ended up fixing it. And then he said, but then I looked at the training manuals and I realized the problem was really the training manuals, and people were putting in the wrong things, and it ended up breaking the machinery. And so, and he said, so Dr. Wilson, what I really learned was that a lot of technical problems are really sociological problems. Yeah. And I thought, that was a really good internship. It's not just the technical things. It's all kinds of other things on how to work and get things done. And I think internships are a great opportunity for students.
It how develops you. At the end of the day, whenever you talk to recruiters, they tell you, well, you ask them, hey, what are you looking for apart from a good GPA, a good set of skills and stuff? We look for leaders, they tell you. We look for people that have initiative, that actually want to do something else, be a little bit more proactive. Whenever you are in a work area, an internship, whatever, if you ask, hey, I finished with my job, what I do next, that leaves a great mark in that sense. For example, in your case, talking a little bit back on the Women History Month. So for you, how hard it was being in a very field with men industry such as the Air Force. You were the second female UTEP president also. Like how is that your life? Well, as I was reading it, I was mesmerized by the sense that you always broke paradigms in that sense, that you always, okay, if men did it this way, I'm going to do it this way. And if I can, well, I can, you know? So how did you manage breaking paradigms in a male scenario, you as a female?
So I never, so my dad died when I was young, but I never remember thinking that I couldn't do these things. And I don't know, I don't know where that came from. And I was the first person in my family to go to college, but somehow I knew I was going to college. It was just, I expected it of myself, and I was always a bit of an adventurous kid, I guess. But I at the time when I went to the Air Force Academy, there were things that, there were people there who didn't think women should be there or something. But I always kind of had this feeling of, if someone said, well, you have to be twice as good to get the credit, well, okay, I'll be twice as good.
It's crazy.
And then once that door is open, I have a responsibility to keep that door open for others. And I think that translates well to what we do here at UTEP. We are increasing access to excellent higher education. We meet students where they are, help them build on their strengths, and build a better life for themselves, and become a better, great college education helps students to become better versions of themselves. And that's one of the things I like about UTEP.
I think that a great leader needs to open up the doors for everybody else. I mean, and we see it in every hero's history. In your opinion, what does constitute a great leader? What does a great leader have to have?
Values driven. So integrity and excellence are two things very important to me, particularly integrity. So values driven, mission focused. What is the mission of the institution that you're trying to lead? And people oriented. So you don't get anything done except through people. And so a leader has to be able to articulate that vision of where we're going, but it has to engage other people in that vision. And if you're not values-driven, if you're not honest, if you're not straight with people, people know it from the very beginning, and they're not going to trust you. So values-driven, mission-focused, and people-oriented. And I think those three things are probably what define, are the core of leadership for me.
It's hard, Doctor, to actually get to develop and to have a great team, because I believe that you see this successful people all over the world, right? But you don't see the team of the work that is behind them. So I believe that a great team develops great character. And in your case, like what is something that in your team in particular, like what types of skills do you search for specifically?
I have to say that the most, and I probably wouldn't have said this 10 or 15 years ago, the most important thing a senior leader does is hire well. And it does require a team that builds relationships of trust. So we've got a very universities are very complex organizations. You're driving research, you're doing teaching, you've got to keep the lights on and the roofs. There's a lot of things going on, but everybody has to bring their skills to the table in an environment of trust and openness. And if you don't have that, things break down pretty quickly. And so building relationships of trust, obviously highly competent in people's areas. I mean, the vice president of research has to be really competent in that area, but it's more than that. Can they articulate a vision? Can they see the strategies to drive us forward in research? And we have team members that are, very different from each other, but they all bring their gifts to the table. And it's a really a very high-performing team here at UTEP. It's really some people who've come from elsewhere, some who have had their entire careers here at UTEP. It's really, really a great team together.
And I think that's a good thing to actually, what you said, it resonates with me a lot. I mean, having a team that actually trusts you, that are loyal at the end of the day, it's a very important thing to develop greatness at the end.
But it's trust in each other. And those relationships of trust really are built over a lifetime, and they can be broken so quickly. And if there was one thing that I didn't really understand as a young person, probably
You're still young.
Well, early in my career, let me put it that way.
Rephrase it.
That I was so focused on the work that we were doing, and that's what really mattered. I really probably didn't spend as much time on the relationships that we're developing at the same time. And when I look back on it, that's what I remember. It's not the destination, it was the journey and who was there with me. And by working together on things, we did create deep relationships of trust that have crossed over decades.
And now with social media, I think everything's so fake now. I mean, everybody, well, at least with my generation, it's awful to see that some kind of person or some person do things for likes or for other types of recognition. And I think that's so empty, because people have told me, like, hey, you should talk about this topic in your podcast. Hey, you should do this on social media. And at the end of the day, you see, like, okay, yeah, that will get likes, definitely. But what type of audience and what type of team and what type of perspective are you building for yourself? And I think branding, it's a great point for that. So
one of the things it does allow, though, is connections across geography. I just was on a meeting just left a Zoom meeting, and we never, pre-pandemic, we almost never did those kind of things. But there were people there from 3 different continents, and that never would have been possible without these technologies. So I think used properly, they can keep people connected. We get early morning emails. I know this sounds weird, but until I was, 20 years into my career, we didn't have email. Wow. So I remember the first time I got email, and I got an email from a friend from high school. I thought, wow, this is so wonderful. I go to the office in the morning. It's like having a note from a friend on my desk. It's like, this is so cool.
And now we have the thing, I think that we're living right now, the same thing with the metaverse and the Apple Vision Pros. And okay, I can put them on and I can see my family, what I've left in Mexico or whatever. And that type of technology changes lives. And I mean, for a generation, it must be hard. I mean, you guys came from having no phone, having none of anything, from having a break, and then having these things right here, and then having high-speed internet.
We FaceTime with grandchildren, and we think about how our grandchildren, our children grew up in New Mexico, and their grandparents were back in Ohio and Michigan, and we realize now how much they missed the little things. And you probably do this with your family too, where you text some picture of some goofy thing you're doing today,
a meme or something.
Yeah, that wasn't. It allows us to stay connected over distance in ways that can be positive, even though there are some aspects of social media which no doubt are negative.
Don't you think we take sometimes that for granted right nowadays? Because I think that before we had instant messaging, we ought to wait the 4, 5, 6 months right now here in the semester to see our family. And now that we have such contact with them, whenever we see them, it's not the same anymore. So I think that even though it's good, it's not the same as, I miss my family as much as you should.
Well, perhaps, but my daughter-in-law just returned from a year overseas. She was in South Sudan. She's with the State Department. And we all got together and had dinner, the things that she was missing for dinner, for not being away from America. And that chance to sit around the family dining table and hold hands and say grace and share a meal. It's still, as much as technology helps to make the time go faster when you're separated from family, there's something wonderful about getting a hug and being together and passing the potatoes.
Definitely. And now I think that a topic that I want to talk to you is about how we look for personalization in everything that we do right now. So I think that we ought to look for, before I know that maybe you had, but the mentors that we had in the past were personal, were like one-on-one with people. But now we can find mentors online, YouTubers, politicians, athletes, and stuff like that. And you can connect with them directly, not only via, personally, but also with social media. So I think right now personalization is a big aspect. And for example, I don't know if you know the page FitFem here in El Paso.
Say it again.
FitFem El Paso? No, well, FitFem El Paso. It's a biggest news thing here for the people from El Paso. Actually, people trust more that page, which is I don't know who made it. Nobody knows who made that page. But if you want to know what's going on East El Paso, West El Paso, downtown El Paso, you look for FitFam. And they have this lemma: don't end up in FitFam, because normally they upload people that crash, people that are drunk in the street, people that all that kind of stuff. And for me, that I'm a foreigner and that I come here, you feel that like closeness to the community because it's somebody with the camera recording this kind of stuff rather than a big news anchor telling that. So what do you think about that? I mean, our generation moving away from big institutions.
I think it's kind of neat that kind of thing can happen.
Yeah.
I also think it's neat that if you wanted to growing up, if I wanted to learn something about your hometown, I'd go to the library, and maybe our family had a book of encyclopedias because one of us won them in some competition or something. Maybe there's something in there.
You should look.
But now, not only can you go online and look that up, but you can go to ChatGPT or a Copilot or one of the other, within the last 18 months, these new tools to be able to say, if I wanted to read articles about the state of Chihuahua that would tell me about its history, where should I start? And so it curates knowledge for you so that it puts a lot more tools in your hands to be able to learn new things. I think that's one of the most exciting things. And yes, we can be entertained by it in YouTube or Netflix or FitFam. Is that the way you say it?
Yeah, FitFam. Paso, yeah. Shout out to
them. But it also applies to things we want to learn ourselves or learn about.
Don't you think that's dangerous right now? Because as we see information development right now, CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg, the TikTok one, they're being put in Congress because information is so broad right now. I mean, wherever it is different. If you search for Torreon here in Del Paso, than if you search it in Shanghai or you search it in Copenhagen. So don't you think it's dangerous for information to be so broad that we don't know what's the truth anymore?
Well, there's a deep philosophical discussion here about what is truth.
Yeah.
And you can take the philosophy class here.
I will.
I think it requires us to be thoughtful consumers and to be questioning things that we're shown and to probe and to think and to read widely, to engage with people with whom we disagree with humility. Because there's chances are I've made at least 3 mistakes already today. I mean, and if you engage people with humility, both reading personally, chances are that you will change your perspective, or you'll become a more thoughtful version of yourself. So I don't think it's dangerous to have access to greater knowledge, but it does mean we need to become better and more thoughtful consumers of knowledge.
Be more empathetic. I mean, because what you said about talking about people that they don't agree with you exactly, I think that's the best way to achieve world peace, to achieve a union between two parties. And that's something that I normally try to do every day, at least. Well, it's not that I'm from one party or another, or neither Mexico or the United States, but I tend to search arguments from both sides of every type of story to see what's the truth for me and to see what's going on with that type of thing.
I do think that there's one of the things that concerns me about this change is that historically there were very strong media outlets. Now there are still ones that are national, but the thing that has died away is local news.
Yeah,
and I'm a little concerned about that, about the decline in local news. Who is down, sitting through the school board meeting or the county commission meeting, or listening to what the mayor is saying, or reporting on what's going to happen when they widen I-10? I mean, there's just that level of news has been undermined a little bit because there's just not as much. There's not as much advertising. They haven't adjusted as much, and so that local journalism is something that I think I worry about a little bit, because that's what often ties us together as a community.
To have the same information as a whole. Yeah.
And that have somebody out there whose job is to bring us that local news.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Doctor, another point that I want to touch with you, you're a granddaughter of immigrants. They come from Scotland. Your grandfather?
My grandfather.
They call him Scotty, right?
Yeah.
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 So you may know, and you heard stories about how difficult it is to be an immigrant as a whole in any part of the world. Right now, there's a big outburst of immigrants coming from South America to the United States. The things that happen in the Middle East, everything that's going on, it's really difficult to describe right now. But something that is really great here at UTEP is that every student like you said in the beginning, it's handed an opportunity. I think me being an immigrant, it's really great to have, there's a lot of opportunities to be scholarships, classes, workshops, information that you can grasp and you can gather so you can become a better person. However, also something that is really hard to be as an immigrant is like to compete with others in the same area. And let me explain that. So, for example, I don't know if you know, but for an F1 student to actually get a job in the field, we need to get another visa, which is the H-1 visa. And that visa is basically a lottery. So you're not guaranteed before or after a higher education a spot in the workforce in the United States. Whenever you want to work here, you need to get a Social Security number, and also you only can work 19 hours a week. So because if not, you're getting advantage of the system. So in that sense, you knowing and you being literally in the guts of the education system, what do you think either UTEP, the United States government, or anything can help us to ease up those kind of situations so that more highly educated, capable immigrants can come to the United States? Right now that we have a crisis in birth, many people are not having kids and that kind of stuff. So we need immigrants. That's my belief. So I wanted to get your opinion on that.
So our immigration laws are outdated, no question, and they have been. It's kind of been stuck for about 20 years. And there are things that large numbers of people in America agree on. But that hasn't been able to. This is not something that we can solve here at UTEP.
Of course.
It is something that needs to be solved by the Congress and the President to change some of our laws. And that probably means changing some of our asylum laws. We do need better border security. We know that. But there are also issues with respect to immigration. Right now, we have a system of immigration that trends heavily towards family relationship and not so much towards skill. There have been ideas in the Congress in the past about what they call the Staple Act. A friend of mine from Arizona introduced it. It didn't pass, but it was the idea was if you got a degree from an American university in a needed skill, then a green card would be stapled to your diploma.
Wow.
That's why you call it the Staple Act.
Wow, that's a good one.
But part of the challenge of supporting things like expansion of the H-1B visa program is there are people in America who say, wait a minute, what about my kids? How do we make sure that kids who grow up in America have the opportunity to go to college, to meet the needs of their community and so forth? And so I think there are ideas out there to address those kind of things, but it requires a coming together that has not happened in America in the last 20 years. And I think it's really actually kind of coming to a head now. And I hope that we can build, that we've got the kind of leaders in America who can pull people together to secure the border, to deal with the human trafficking problem and the drug problem, to allow legal immigration and cross-border commerce, and address some of these really critical issues because they haven't for 20 years.
That's a very good point because I see this the same way. It's not a white or black problem. It's a gray problem. I mean, if you move this part of the spectrum, you'll affect this one. So I think we need to be very careful in that sense to actually know what to do. And it's not a solution that, as you said, like UTEP needs to do, not even yourself, not even people in El Paso or in Texas. It's a whole thing from international courts and that kind of stuff.
Because immigration law in the United States is federal law. It's not state law, and it's not something we can really affect here locally. But I do hope that perhaps there's enough will in the country and pressure to address border security, immigration law, asylum law, to get a system that works.
You're living in the border. How do you feel that type of tension of immigration law here?
It's interesting. Here in El Paso, it's probably a little different. And because I don't know about what your family says and things, but people see things on the news about El Paso. And it's when I tell people that we have 1,200 students who cross the border every day, to come to UTEP. Now, some of them are American citizens living in Ciudad Juarez with one parent or the other, but about 800 are Mexican citizens who cross the border, get up really early, and cross the border and come to university here. I also think that most people who cross the border here move very quickly on through the shelters and so forth, and move on to other parts of America. I do think we've got a problem with our asylum system, but it doesn't really show up here so much in El Paso. And this community has been a border and trading community for 400 years. There are families that live on both sides of the border, and they've been going back and forth for 400 years. So it is a binational, bicultural community that is very different from other parts of the United States.
And El Paso being many people, El Paso in Spanish, the path, right? The path, the step.
Yeah.
And I think that's me being not from here. It's amazing how many people, even though they're from here, they don't have the sense of like being here from the other cities. Let's say San Antonio, Austin, College Station, for example. And I think that reflects directly on UTEP. I mean, UTEP is not known because of its great college spirit or that kind of stuff. At least that is what other peers tell me. And I think it's mainly because people see El Paso sometimes like a jump, like a trampoline to other type of stuff. But right now what I'm seeing is that many people choose to stay here, and many people choose to actually educate themselves here and grab a lot of love for this place. So in that sense, how do you feel UTEP should like try to, how can I explain this? Like to try to attract more people from other parts of the world that actually want to pursue an education, higher education in the United States, and why should UTEP be their option?
Until about 3 years ago, UTEP did not even recruit from outside of El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. We have now started doing that. We did a comprehensive enrollment plan, and we're not well known outside because we've never told our story outside of El Paso. So we're now recruiting in the Rio Grande Valley, in Houston, in Dallas-Fort Worth, in southern Arizona, and we now have a part-time recruiter in Chihuahua, in the state of Chihuahua. So
you should come to Torreon.
So we'll go there.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're expanding out that way and telling our story. That's a long-term effort, but at the same time, we're trying to go deeper here to reach more students, particularly who are juniors in high school, to explain to them what their options are, what their choices are, and why this is a great choice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
One of the last points that I want to talk to you about, why UTEP? Why El Paso? Why did you choose? That's when I was investigating your story, it was such a radical change for being the Secretary of the Air Force and coming here to El Paso. So what's the decision upon that?
So I loved, I was a university president before in Rapid City, South Dakota.
The School of Mines, right?
Yeah, South Dakota School of Mines. I loved public higher education. And when Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis recruited me to go back to the Pentagon, he knew that when my job there was done, I wanted to come back to public higher education in the West. Our family home's in Albuquerque, so it's 4 hours north of here. And when it looked as though Secretary Mattis was going to be leaving the Pentagon, the headhunters, if you've been a college president, you're like on their email list and things. But I got contacted by a headhunter about UTEP, and I had known of Dr. Natalicio and UTEP before, and I mentioned it to my husband, and came home from work the next day, and he said, I looked at a map, and that university is closer to Hatch Green Chili than Albuquerque is.
Definitely, it is.
You better call them back. So it's the region of the country we wanted to be in. We like the West, we like the Southwest, and it's a good school with a great mission. So that's why.
And you bring from Elm City. That's what they call Keene, right?
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And also talking about that, arriving to a city in which Natalicio was here for 30 years?
30 years, yeah.
How hard was it to, not replace because everybody's different, but like to step into those shoes?
Well, she has tiny feet. I don't know. I do. I am who I am, and so I think everyone here really is committed to the mission, adjusted quickly. Dr. Natalicio was an incredible leader over a long period of time, and I have a tremendous respect for her. She also had some health issues, and everybody has earned a retirement at some point.
Definitely.
So it was time to kind of pick up and move forward. And then, of course, we ended up in a global pandemic, and everything changed. So I've been very happy here, and it's really nice to be this close to the Rio Grande.
That's awesome, Doctor. One last thing that you could say to the youth that are watching this podcast that have questions about, like, okay, why should I go to college? Or, like, what message should you tell the youth that is watching this video?
Yeah. What was good enough for your parents and your grandparents is not good enough for you. The best path to a better life is education. And there's just no question about that. None at all. So work hard, stay in school, and at a place like UTEP, we will meet you where you are and help you to become a better version of yourself. And that's what we're here for.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Raza, no olviden suscribirse, picarle a todos lados, like, todos lados. And also, thank you again for coming, for receiving us. Triple T Podcast in the house. See ya.